So does an aluminium phone in 2024 still make sense? Well, this OnePlus Nord 4 brings it back. And while I was doing my in-depth review of the phone after using the phone for 3 weeks, besides my fingerprints, there is something else that caught my attention. So the box comes with an aqua blue box with the familiar Nord branding in front. Then inside there's a nice little welcome note, the signature red USB-A to USB-C cable, a SIM ejector tool, and the usual quick start and safety guide. So yes, by now you already know that the design and the build quality for this phone is totally different than any newly released smartphone. Because unlike many smartphones today, this OnePlus Nord 4 is taking cues from the past. Where the phone comes with an aluminium unibody that is very reminiscent of the OG Android smartphones way back in the day, like the HTC One M8, the old Google Pixel phones, the iPhone 6 and even the previous OnePlus 3 and the 3T. Now OnePlus claims that this is the only smartphone in the 5G era to feature an aluminium body. And the reason for this is that aluminium and metal bodies do interfere with the antenna reception, which is why brands switch to either glass or other materials like hard plastic for their back part of the phone. So to solve this so-called issue, OnePlus has developed a special solution by optimizing the internal structure and a U-shaped antennas of the phone, thus removing the reception problems that usually is faced by metal or aluminium bodies. So yes, OnePlus's never settle motto is really showing here because that is a lot of work. And this special type of finish also serves for heat dissipation and cooling properties of the aluminium to improve the thermals of this phone, and it also has a unique thermal conduction barrier design that also prevents heat transfer through the metal unibody in the gripping area. But yeah, that is the plan at least, because in practice it's quite a different story and I'll touch on that later in this video. Now the variant that I have is the Obsidian Midnight version, which has a smooth brushed metal type of finish which looked really nice. Now this is also the thinnest Nord smartphone that OnePlus has ever produced, measuring at only 7.99 mm. However, OnePlus has also added a section of a reflective glass on the back part of the device where the two cameras are located. Now it is a nice addition that breaks up the mainly aluminium back, but it is a huge fingerprint magnet, so you have to wipe it every single time that you use it. Now the phone has a flat sides all around, which not only makes the phone look good but also very comfortable to hold. And the excellent news for people like me who always type the phone on a table, well, this does not wobble at all. Now besides the usual button placement and the signature alert slider, there's also the IR blaster on the phone, which I still feel that IR blasters on phones are such an underrated feature, which I wish that more smartphones adapt this IR blaster on their smartphones. Then the phone also has an IP65 water and dust resistant. Next, let's talk display. The phone uses a 6.74 OLED display and has a peak brightness of 2150 nits. It also supports Ultra HDR and has a 120Hz refresh rate screen. Now it is a very good screen that is very bright even used outdoors or even here in this very bright studio. There are a few different types of color modes that you can choose from within the screen adjustments between natural and vivid, where you can find these settings under the screen color mode option under the display and brightness settings. Then under the Pro mode, you can choose between a cinematic mode or a brilliant mode, where I left the display at the brilliant mode because I like the higher saturated colors, which was easier on the eyes. Now what's extra nice is that the phone also supports widewide L1 playback specification together with HDR10 capabilities, so you don't have to worry about high quality streaming on Netflix or even on Disney Plus Hotstar, where the stereo speakers do get pretty loud too. Now OnePlus also included an Aqua Touch feature which ensures that the display works well even with wet fingers. Then there's also the Eye Care Magic that uses blue light filters to reduce the OLED flickers in darker environment, which thus reduces eye strain. And while there's no scientific way of testing this, I didn't notice any issues when I used the phone daily, both during the day and night too. But you know what else doesn't cause any excessive eye strain? For giving this video a like. Press the button down below. Thank you very much in advance. Next, as for the cameras, the ultra-wide lens is an 8 megapixel lens and the main lens is a 50 megapixel lens. Yep, just two lenses, no nonsense depth sensor, black and white lens or grandma lens. So thank you OnePlus for being straightforward with this, and it also comes with a 16 megapixel for the front camera. Now if you think that the 8 megapixel lens would not do a good job when it comes to the ultra-wide photos, you will be sadly mistaken, because the ultra-wide photos in this phone looks amazing, as you can see in these two shots. Now the main lenses also did a very good job, and even if you compare the ultra-wide to the main lens side by side, it shows the great image processing without any color shifts switching between the ultra-wide to the main lens, which happens to most other smartphones out there. Now even though there's no dedicated telephoto lens, the 52mm or the 2x digital zoom look great. Even if you zoom up to 130mm, which is about 5x zoom, it also still look flawless. But if you go to the max 20x or 520mm lens, you will see a degrading of the image quality. Then there's also a 1x and 2x for the portrait mode, which looked amazing in both modes with fantastic skin tones and subject to background blur. Then as for objects, where in this case a uniquely shaped flower, it did well on the 1x, but the subject to background blur was not as good on the 2x mode. Then as for selfies during the day, again size did not matter over here, as this 16 megapixel lens was one of the best I have seen within this price range, with fantastic dynamic range and subject separation as well. Skin tones was also amazingly accurate. Then switching over to the nighttime photos, I love the darker areas of the skies where it looked nice and dark without any noise present. Compared to most smartphones that would make the skies a bit more bluer and brighter than real life, and the balance of the highlights was also really amazing as seen in these photos too. Then the main lenses also did very well as expected, even up to 2x zoom, and the rear portrait mode at night was also really good for humans and subjects as well. Now once again, the front cameras truly surprised me with a very good image quality when it comes to taking selfies at night. I mean, size does not matter always, because it does come down to the performance.
What do you mean by that?
Now video-wise, the stabilization for the ultra-wide was really good, but the recording quality can only go up to 1080p. The main lenses also look very stable, but do ignore the quality for this particular moment because the skies were a bit more gloomy than usual, no thanks to the crazy rainy weather as of late. But keep in mind that the 2x and the 5x stabilization was not as good as the ultra-wide and the main lenses. Quality-wise, all of the lenses over here did indeed look very nice, even the 1080p ultra-wide lenses as seen over here. And while the main lenses and the 2x video quality was really good, I wouldn't go past the 5x video quality. Then the rear video at night looked great for the ultra-wide and the main lenses too. Then as for the front video, as usual, it records up to a maximum resolution of 1080p, and always remember to turn on the stabilization when you record video on the front cameras, because it is turned off by default, because while it is tiny wider than turning it on, if you don't turn it on, it looks very unstable. Now not sure why they didn't turn it on by default, so keep that in mind, because when you turn it on, the stabilization and the video quality look really great. Now once again, the front cameras was surprisingly really nice when it comes to the video quality and stabilization at nighttime too. And here's a vlogging test to hear how the audio quality is, so you can be the judge.
Alright, so this is an audio test for our vlogging situation using the front camera. Now I've got the image stabilization turned on because if I do not turn it on, it is quite wobbly. So keep that in mind because by default it is not turned on. But anyway, this is a audio test when there are a lot of wind here at the 18th floor. So test 1, 2, test 1, 2, test 1, 2. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below.
So if you guys are enjoying the photo and the video samples and love content like this, do subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't done so. And once again, thank you very much in advance. Now as for gaming, the phone comes with a 4nm Snapdragon 7 Plus Gen 3 processor, which is pretty great for mid to high level gaming, and with a 16GB of RAM and a whopping 512GB of internal storage, this is indeed a really good phone for gaming. Now Genshin Impact runs surprisingly well over here with smooth frame rates on medium graphic settings, and I even tried pushing the game to high, and even on the higher settings it was actually quite playable, even though the frame rate did take a little hit. Now the phone can also run 120 FPS gaming, where I tested this on COD Mobile and Pokemon Go. Now COD Mobile managed to run at a consistent 60 frames, and I had quite a blast playing it on this phone. And Pokemon Go also ran at a consistent 120 FPS, but to achieve this you need to increase the max refresh rate in the settings. We can do this by going to the display and brightness section, click on the screen refresh rate, go to the app specific refresh rate, choose Pokemon Go or whichever app that you want to change the default refresh rate to 120 Hz, and boom, you're done. Now at this point you might be wondering, but Adam, this is an aluminium phone. Would it be very hot while gaming? Well, I'm happy to report that it's not bad. Now, yes, you can feel the heat just a little, but not to a point where I needed to put the phone down after prolonged gaming sessions. Now, when it comes to the battery, the phone comes with a 5500 milliamps of battery, which is the biggest battery ever on a Nord phone, and it supports 100 watts of Super VOOC fast charging. Now, with that, you can fully charge the phone under half an hour. That is if you have the charging brick, since it does not come in a box. But yeah, knowing the fact that I can fully charge a phone in just few minutes is still very mind-blowing to me. Now, battery life was also really good, lasting me about a day and a half even with many gaming sessions, with a screen on time of 7 hours and 9 minutes from full charge to 20%. Now, of course, you want to increase the battery life further, you can by reducing the screen resolution and the brightness, but honestly, I wouldn't change that at all since the battery life is plenty good enough as it is. Now, as for software, the phone runs on Oxygen OS 14.1, which is based on Android 14, and I really like Oxygen OS because it comes with some really great features that I find extremely useful. Now, I still love how the UI looks, very clean and bright, especially with a lot of gesture controls implemented, where in case you're not familiar, there's a swipe up or down with 3 fingers to take screenshots, and there's other features like opening split screen and more. Then another thing that I found extremely useful is the OnePlus Games app, where it helps to monitor the gaming performance and the temperature of the phone while playing. Then there's also access for different modes that can help with the performance of the phone during games, where you can also tweak the game's visuals a bit, like the game's color and the saturation as well. Now, the phone comes with 4 years of Android updates and 6 years of security upgrades, and similar like other OnePlus phones, it does come with some app bloatware. Now, it may not be an issue for some because you can always uninstall the app, but yes, it does take a while for me to use the phone when I unbox it for the very first time, just taking my time to uninstall all of the apps that I don't really use. Now, if you want a written recap of this whole video on a text format, there is at our website at www.adamlobo.tv. Links to that will be down below. So, in conclusion, I really like the OnePlus Nord 4. The new aluminium finish is a really missed feature in the smartphone world, where OnePlus has proved that this type of material can still work today, and it was great to use when I use it daily. The screen for me is also one of the biggest strengths, especially for watching videos, and the software UI is still nice and clean, and the cameras did perform really well too, one of the best I have seen within this price, which really caught my attention. Now, speaking of the price, it retails at 2,599 ringgit, which is about 629 USD, which I think is decent, but who cares what I think, because what matters more is what you think. So let me know in the comment section below of what you think of this phone, and let's discuss over there.